Hello everyone, welcome back to Diving into Doctor Who here on It's a Wonderful Podcast, the start of Series 2 properly. Now, Jeannine, we spoke about that first Christmas special, the Christmas invasion, last time out, but we're into Series 2 proper now. This is really where the 10th Doctor begins to take shape, obviously, alongside Rose for this particular series as well. Before we move too far forward and get too ahead of ourselves, we must stay in the present, because we really are at the start of Ten and Rose's time together as a proper duo. We didn't really get them as a duo in the Christmas invasion because the Doctor was not particularly present for a great deal. Zonked out. He was recuperating after regeneration in the Christmas invasion. But for these two episodes we'll be talking about today, we really, I think, very, very quickly become quite endeared to the two of them as a duo. And Tennant and Billie Piper's chemistry, I think, is equally as palpable as Eccleston and Billie Piper's chemistry in a different way, because Tennant is kind of quickly a little bit lighter of a
more playful,
bit more playful. There's not quite as much kind of weight of the world on his shoulders at this current moment, at least anyway. But I think, as I've teased in maybe when we were talking about the Christmas invasion, when we get slightly later, well, throughout really sort of the 10th Doctor's run, and certainly in his later stories, he becomes rather all-powerful god-like, and he's well aware of his power. They call it the Time Lord Victorious in the show canon. So he's very sort of, he becomes full of himself, but not in a annoyingly arrogant way. So it's kind of interesting how it gets to there from the episodes we're talking about today, where he kind of has a lot of jokes to play around with. He's kind of being a bit silly, even in both episodes, really. But first and foremost, I think it's important to ask the question, what are your first impressions? Because really, this is kind of where you got up to in your first original rewatch of Doctor Who. I don't quite know if you had watched these two episodes before, or maybe one of them, but not the other.
I feel like I thought I had watched a couple into the season because the Christmas invasion was like a longer special. But I think I just watched the Christmas invasion and then I stopped after that because I don't remember either of these episodes. So
we are properly in new territory. So that is a great thing to finally get to, I think, on diving into Doctor Who. Again, I will ask this all-important first question. What are your immediate reactions to Ten and Rose's dynamic between the two of them in these two episodes, particularly as we begin, talking about episode 1, New Earth? But what are your immediate reactions to that?
I love their dynamic. I do love that it's a little bit more playful, and he does kind of take a more dominant kind of stance on like protecting her, particularly in this first episode. But I think it's really kind of funny and more lively. Like even when they arrive somewhere and she just kind of takes his hand and like looks at him and tells him how much she loves traveling around with him. It's just kind of like this very sweet moment. I think it's kind of like the confirming moment, like solidifying that this is who we're going to be following. This is, their dynamic, and now let's kind of go into the adventure. So I like that we got kind of this good, very warm kind of reminder of, okay, this is what this chemistry is going to look like before we kind of jumped into the shenanigans of this first episode. So yeah, I'm loving their vibe together so far.
I mean, that taking his hand and saying, "I love traveling with you. Isn't this going to be great? Us continuing to do this," is a perfect way to start a series of television. Which is exactly how they do start in the big budget effects show-off episode that is New Earth to begin this particular series. I'll give a little bit of synopsis. In the distant future, an order of cat nuns cure all illnesses, but the 10th Doctor is suspicious of their methods. He must uncover the truth and save Rose from the vengeance of an old enemy, the Lady Cassandra, which is an interesting returning villain, isn't it, really?
Yes.
As Cassandra from episode 2 of the series 1, the end of the world, the last the last human, this piece of skin on a metal sheet, and as very sassily played by Zoe Wanamaker, who you actually see in flesh in this episode, in this weird flashback thing.
Yes, and I love that we hear her voice and kind of see the human her in this kind of like flashback that she's watching before we even see, and we immediately know, because how she kind of voiced that character and put on this kind of gravitas and grandness. We immediately know who it is before we see that kind of stretched out flap of skin. So I loved kind of this build up that still played kind of fun and interestingly, even though we kind of already knew immediately who it was, even though like it wasn't a surprise. Like hearing the voice was kind of surprise enough, and you're like, okay, where is this gonna go? Like, how is she here? So I like kind of build up that gave me of like, okay, I know who this is. Where are we going with this? So that was really fun.
I like how we get a little bit of a explanation of how New Earth has come to be as well, because this is technically set in it's the year 5,023,000,023 they're in at the moment, which is technically set after the end of the world episode, the episode 2 of series 1, when we saw the destruction of Earth. Humanity kept surviving, it kept evolving, because by that point they were across the stars, across the galaxies, whatever it may be, found this other planet with the exact same orbit and conditions of Earth, and resettled there. And we find ourselves in New York, which is the stupidest named place you'll ever get, because creativity is rife, clearly, in the year 5,023,000,023. But immediately the Doctor is obviously very interested by this particular hospital building that is predominant in this episode. It's the whole setting. There's been a bit of a distress signal, or a bit of a signal that the TARDIS has received from this particular hospital, but who the Doctor finds there, he's not quite sure before we get in there. But the cold open of the episode is with Cassandra. She's got herself a weird little
assistant, who's kind of obsessed with taking care of her and devoted to her care and all this whole kind of thing.
So it's fun, as you say, to kind of get this, or to be aware of the fact you're getting this returning villain, a villain that I think was very, very, well liked as a villain,
well remembered,
impactful from series 1. We don't see her after this episode. She is a two and done villain. But I've always liked that we return to her for this, because she adds such a fun layer. We get so much more of her personality in coming out in this episode in a very, very interesting way, obviously, because she kind of infects herself into each of Rose and the Doctor at
And the
various
doctor.
points.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, I think a normal episode would just be dealing with the conflict of these cat nun people and what they're doing, and
Yeah,
that would be the whole episode. So to have this extra layer of this villain coming back and this really kind of fun layer of her infiltrating both of them, and then kind of these actors having to play into kind of her style and tone and,
yeah,
her kind of fancy flair, adds to the comedy as well. So,
yeah. I
like,
mean,
I think that little added, layer on top of the story that we're already getting that is pretty interesting and feels just kind of like what we would get, like our typical kind of monster of the week situation, I think really makes it, a great episode, so
yeah. I mean, there's an awful lot of really good comedy, I think, in New Earth. It's very, very campy, but it's absolutely indicative of this first Russell T Davies era of the show. This particular, era of Doctor Who. It is
Mhm.
very, very campy while having some serious sort of moral questions to think about that I think this episode does have in its actual central sort
Yeah.
of plot of how this hospital is run, how these cat nuns are able to be so unbelievably medically advanced that they
Yeah.
are. Um, the secrets that are revealed surrounding that, and when the Doctor obviously finds out exactly what's going on, he's appalled at what's going on,
Yeah.
obviously, and kind of rightfully so. It's completely barbaric, but
Yeah.
they're the cats, the Sisters of Plenitude, as they are known as, which is a great
Yeah.
title. Are they bring up understandable points as to
Yeah, they
why
have their
as to their
justification.
reasoning.
Yeah, they have the justification for why they're doing this and why they, don't think it's morally bad.
Yeah,
And so that still is very much in conflict, I think, with what the doctor believes. So
yeah.
yeah, it's a really interesting conflict there.
And it's fun that you have that conflict, the Cassandra conflict, but also Cassandra wanting to gain power from all the facilities within this hospital herself because
Yeah.
she's there trapped in like the basement area or wherever
Mhm.
she is with her little
Yeah.
sidekick Chip,
Yeah.
who is just kind of keeping her moisturized and alive.
Yeah.
But she wants a perfect human body to actually
Yeah.
inhabit again now,
Yeah.
and get properly, and where better else than this seemingly perfect hospital. We
Yeah.
can cure anything within this hospital, so we must have perfect humans, as
Yeah.
far as the evolution of humans are at that particular point.
Yeah.
They must be here. So Cassandra's trying to gain power of this hospital. The Sisters of Plenitude are trying to protect their way of doing things.
Mhm.
Um, but the Doctor's received this signal and kind of gets himself involved, because this signal comes from another returning character from the End of the World episode, the Face of Bo, who we didn't get
Yeah.
much of in the
No.
End of the World, but the Face of Bo is an interesting entity, I think,
Yeah.
and doubly more so in this episode because he comes out with a bit of an enigmatic message, after kind of
Oh,
dematerializing
yeah. Mhm.
almost,
Yeah.
all about the Face of Bo is older than time, the Face of Bo is
Mhm.
dying, some say he's millions of years old, but that's impossible, and all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But the Doctor has an affection for the Face of Bo,
Yeah.
and the Face of Bo has an affection for the Doctor, but by the end of the episode, I think this can be spoken about separately because
Yeah.
it doesn't really factor into
Kind
the
of fit
rest
into
of
the
the
story. Yeah.
episode. He gives a message of, "I will come to you again, Doctor, and tell you something." I'm paraphrasing. "I will come to
Yeah.
you again, Doctor, and tell you
Yeah.
something very, very important, but
Mm.
not yet. We will meet for a third time." And then he just
He
dematerializes,
disappears.
essentially.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many setups to things that I'm just curious about all of these boxes being opened. The next episode will, dig into something that you mentioned to me
Yeah.
before. You've also kind of hinted about the, cut off hand and where that's going to factor in.
Oh, yeah.
And so now I'm just waiting for also this, really important information
Yeah.
that is going to be, revealed when this character comes back, whenever they decide to come back. So
Well,
many little
I
kind of
will
goodies that I'm like, well, where's this? When is this going to come in? How is this going to play factor in? So, yeah.
I will tell you, it's no spoiler to tell you that the Face of Bo's third time meeting the Doctor comes in series 3 and
Okay.
is related to a major plot point in series 3,
Ooh, okay.
which personally I think is a phenomenal plot,
Oh,
story
okay.
within
Yeah,
season. But that's where it comes in. But keep the Face of Bo in mind, much like you're
okay.
keeping the cut off hand in mind,
Yeah,
and much like when we obviously get into the next episode, how Queen Victoria ends
Victoria.
that particular episode.
Yeah,
Keep that in mind as well.
yeah.
But what do you make of this? I suppose the moral, the proper philosophical sci-fi of this episode, then the fact that we have this medical facility where everything seems so well advanced, so perfect, but the Sisters of Plenitude are keeping grown, cloned humans that aren't really human because they are kind of
Kind of
they're
made.
just biologically grown.
Yeah. Hmm.
They're not natural.
Yeah.
Just keeping them as lab rats, just infecting them with every disease known
Just
to
to kind of,
humanity.
figure out how to cure it. Um, I think, I get kind of part of their meaning, because it's like it's kind of the best of both worlds as a scientist. I think, when they're working on something, they have their, actual lab rats, and it's like
Yeah,
a long time before they even kind of consider a human trial, which is the ideal kind of specimen to test something out. So when your lab rat is a human, that will help kind of advance things along even quicker. Um, and so I feel like, okay, that makes sense. But I think also when you start to realize, because there is a point where they start to realize that these, humans feel things and have human tendencies and kind of
yeah,
have this awareness. I think once that comes into play, I think that then they should have maybe been questioning what they're doing at that
yeah.
point. If they
The
felt
sisters almost don't give themselves enough realization to even understand that these humans they're keeping in these
yeah,
green canisters are
yeah.
it looks like the Matrix a little bit, doesn't it? It's kind of just these
Yeah,
massive circular
e
hallways of
they
green
all of
canisters.
these canisters, yes, and they, I think one nun shows another one, "Oh, this one's, like, crying out, and they won't stop talking,"
Yeah,
and they see it as almost like, dysfunction, like a
yeah,
mistake, when they actually are showing kind of human emotion, instead of seeing it as like, "Oh, these are actually people, these biological kind of, grown humans that we're making are actually, developing kind of human thoughts and feelings and these kinds of
yeah,
things." But instead of kind of seeing it as that, they're still very kind of numb to it and scientific about it, and really just kind of seeing it as kind of like a kind of, chemical dysfunction, or like a
yeah,
scientific dysfunction in their experiment. So yeah, I think morally, once they realize that these things are more human, that is when they should, feel some type of way about what they're doing, but they don't,
yeah.
which is where it kind of comes into conflict with, the doctor and how he views things like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's really quite heartbreaking at times. I think this is the great
Yeah.
balance of what
Mhm.
this era is able to do. It's able to be as silly as this episode is sometimes, with all the Cassandra stuff and changing into various
Mhm.
bodies,
Yeah.
but able to be really deathly heartbreakingly serious
Yeah, and
when
human as well. Yeah.
human,
These
when the
grounded
doctor is
elements. Mhm.
yeah, when the doctor and Rose, to be fair, are becoming very, very morally angry at the sisters for, when they find out that they're keeping all these, grown humans around.
Yeah.
It's terrifying to them that this is happening. They must stop this. And obviously, this is an episode of Doctor Who. It is eventually solved quite cleverly by the Doctor in terms of gathering all these sort of IV drips together, making a big concoction of chemicals, and then basically filtering this chemical out through the air. And then because when these, grown humans touch anybody else, they become infected because they end up escaping, don't they?
And it ends up feeling like a zombie. Yeah, and it's almost like a zombie situation where they're kind of just like groaning and moaning and shuffling around trying to touch people.
It's a very, very zombie feeling situation. But obviously we see them touch various other individuals and aliens in the hospital, and they become immediately infected with everything and just die. So the opposite happens by the end of it when all this curing situation comes out, is all these grown humans then who have had this chemical concoction blasted onto them go and touch all the other infected people and cure them as well, and everybody lives. Very nice, It's very, very Doctor Who saves the day, which is good. It's what you want, I suppose. But even by the end of it, the Doctor's also kind of pleasant, I suppose, to Cassandra. I mean, Cassandra does get done away with, but
but he tries to do it in a way that he tries to do it in a way that is beneficial to her, that in a way that will help her, and in a way that feeds kind of what she needs, what he knows she needs. So still very kind of sweet on the Doctor's part to not kind of write somebody off even when they've done bad things. Very much feels like what we saw from Eccleston's Doctor, trying to find the best avenue for everyone, no matter kind of who they are. And I would like to think that maybe it was kind of something he also maybe took in from Rose in the Dalek episode, when this is the one kind of villain that he very much doesn't have that kind of grace for. But Rose kind of showed him when she showed grace to that Dalek kind of at the end and had that moment with them. This ending felt very similar to that, and him kind of doing what Rose did in that Dalek episode. So it kind of feels like a subconscious kind of taking in of something that she did that now he's doing, that he's kind of learned from her for once, which I thought was kind of cool thing that it took me back to.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, I really do think they are very good for each other, Rose and the Doctor. For this era, for the time, I do think there are other companions throughout modern Doctor Who that have been very, very good. The Doctor's been good for them, they've been good for the Doctor, and it's worked very, very well as a team. But it's such a great first, obviously, companion to have, and the fact that we do see Rose with two different Doctors, is a really great thing, because it is very different from the 9th to the 10th. Her dynamic becomes quite quickly very different with the with David Tennant, which I've always quite liked. But they balance each other out really well. They're very, very good for each other. And I think they come to have the same sort of strength of belief in what they're doing by traveling, by saving these various people they come across and what have you, whatever it may be. They really come to believe in their own, I suppose, goodness they're able to bring to other people, which is a good thing. It's what may end up making the 10th Doctor become this Time Lord victorious, I always win, I have to win kind of attitude because I always do win. I can't handle not winning kind of a situation that it comes to. But you're definitely seeing the seeds of that, and you're seeing the fact that they together are very, very strong in allowing that to happen and playing off each other, because I think the 10th Doctor is even more human at times than the 9th. You know, Eccleston, I think, was very, very grounded and very obviously kind of almost grieving and occasionally depressed as a kind of feeling as a Doctor.
Yeah.
But there was a certain alien quality to, you know, to the 9th Doctor. There's a certain not quite understanding of humans. He's kind of looks down on humans an awful lot.
Yeah.
The 10th Doctor doesn't really do that in the same way. You know, you're not getting the sort of stupid ape comments that you're getting from the 9th Doctor with the 10th. And maybe he still thinks that because he becomes aware of his own power a lot more.
Yeah.
But he doesn't kind of outright say it. No, not that I can distinctly remember. Does he outright say, I'm better than humans? I don't like humans and all this kind of stuff. Humans just annoy me. He's very, very fond of humanity at this particular point. But he just knows he kind of has the power to save them. Obviously, he shows it first and foremost here in New Earth, but Rose does play a massive part of that, and certainly with the battle with Cassandra, when Cassandra infects the two of them at separate times, it's a really interesting back and forth of basically insisting Cassandra gets out of each other, because stop being inside her,
stop being in him,
stop being inside him, and Cassandra doesn't know where to go, to the point where Cassandra, I think, goes into one of the infected zombie people, and that's when her philosophy changes, because she goes inside them and realizes that they've known nothing but pain, and gains some, you know, humanity herself. She's such an inhuman human, isn't she? But she gains some humanity herself after doing that, which I think is why, in the end, the kind of, you know, she's given a little bit of grace.
They grant her
farewell,
a kind of peaceful goodbye. Yeah, and I mean, you talked about how both of them really want to fight against kind of this moral issue that these cat nuns are kind of doing to these humans. And I like that it's Rose's kind of lack of compassion for the situation that cues the Doctor into realizing that there's something wrong with Rose, because he's like, you know, what, and he thinks that the nuns did it. So he's like, what did you do to Rose? And they're like, what are you talking about? And she's like, she would be just as upset about this as I am. So why is she not? And
why is she talking in this weird way?
Yes, and then that's when Cassandra has to reveal herself, because she's showing very little compassion that Rose would, you know, immediately show. So I love, you know, this knowing of her, like immediately kind of clocking that there must be something bigger wrong with her. You know, something, you know, that has to do with the weird things maybe happening in this place, that kind of clocks him to what happened to Rose. So
we should say as well, before I do forget, one of the sisters of Plenitude is played by Adjoa Ando, or Lady Danbury. Who will return in series 3 of Doctor Who, as well as a different character entirely.
Because that cat makeup is thick and it looks great, and you can't tell what actor is under there. But immediately I heard her voice, and I know if you watch our episodes of babbling about Bridgerton, we are very much a fan of Lady Danbury and how she talks and her cadences, and how you know she rounds her words and these kinds of things. And so I heard her tone, her style, all of that in them. I'm like, is that her? Is that who I think it is?
It definitely
immediately
is.
When
this is Doctor Who, right?
any British actor who's anybody is in Doctor Who, I would assume, is kind of the thing.
Exactly. Exactly. This is Doctor Who. If you think somebody you recognize may be this particular character, it is most
Probably.
likely to be that person you
Yeah.
recognize, right?
Yeah.
So many random British actors have been
Yeah.
on Doctor Who, and some very big name, who would become very big name actors, kind of got
Mhm.
early-ish roles on Doctor Who. We will be seeing some of that going forward. And it's not just in the sense of, that they're playing a notable character here, and it's a celebrity historical episode like we're kind of
Yeah.
getting in episode 2 today. A known actor playing a known historical figure, which
Yeah.
is what we get there. You do get an awful lot of these. Wait, is that person? And it
Yeah.
definitely just is.
Yeah.
There's no question to be had about that. But I do love that. But though, I do feel like it's important to also ask the question that, or I should say, of Cassandra's obsession with kind of perfection
Yeah.
and beauty standards almost isn't something that goes away. I think it's very, very rife in mid 2000s culture anyway, is human perfection and beauty
Mhm.
standards and this kind of stuff. Cassandra embodies those kind of ways of thinking.
Mhm.
After she has her philosophical revelation, after going into the poor infected creature,
Yeah.
she kind of changes her mind about what it means to be human. But we get that final scene in this
Yeah.
episode after Cassandra's done away with, when Chip the sidekick is taken back to this weird flashback time that we've seen on some sort of odd projection that
Yeah.
Cassandra's watching of herself when she was a fully fledged human person and not
Human,
just a piece of
yeah.
skin.
Yeah.
Which rather hilariously, because we obviously see her get destroyed in the End of the World episode, but apparently that was the front part of her skin, and now she's dealing with a graft from the back part of her skin. So Rose
Yeah.
makes a joke that she's talking out of her ass, and that's
R
really quite funny.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of humor we're dealing with in this
Yes,
era of
love
Doctor
it.
Who.
Love it.
But we get that final scene of Chip the sidekick obviously being taken back to this time, and him getting to tell her truly, like a number of times, how seriously beautiful she
Beautiful
is and
she
how
is. Yeah.
beautiful he thinks she is. Clearly, this is something she needs to hear on a deeper than surface
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
And it knocks the kind of proper human Cassandra a bit
Yeah.
sideways at the end of the episode, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you talk about kind of how much she needs to hear it, and he has to say it multiple times for her to kind of get this genuine feeling out of
Yeah,
it, because I'm sure people tell her that all the time, and while it's nice to hear, I think it takes a few times and this kind of reassuring that this other future version of herself is giving her, for her to really kind of take it in. Because he says it and she kind of like brushes it off, and he's like, "No, you are incredibly beautiful." And she's like, "Thank you." And then I think he even says it like a third time, and that's
yeah.
when she kind of softens and has a really kind of sweet moment of kind of taking it in. And then when
But he's
he
dying at
finally
this point, so he
Yes.
like, this is his last act, essentially.
Yes. So him kind of, as her like collapses and dies, she has this like genuine concern for him, like as a human, because of this kind of kindness that he took time to show her. So I
Yeah,
like that he brought that out in her in the final moments. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's at times it's a very heartbreaking episode, I think,
Mhm.
New Earth, but it is also full of that love for humanity, that
Yeah.
positivity, the good humor, yes, and a brilliant first. sort of bonding mission for the 10th Doctor and Rose. I really do think it's a great series opener. It's not the finest episode we get in series 2, I don't think by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a really, really solid one.
Yes.
I'd be interested to hear how you think it compares to this next episode, Jeannine, which is Tooth and Claw. It almost goes from one quite impressive special effects spectacle, which in New Earth, to, oh dear, I think we got rid of all our budget in the first episode again.
Yeah.
What are we going to do with the CG now? Because this is Doctor Who trying to do a werewolf story, which is a little bit odd to begin with, I think.
Yeah.
Given that it's obviously very folkloric and,
spiritual
kind of rather than scientific.
Yeah. Yes, and as a horror fan, I enjoy kind of the horror aspect of it. I think that's fun. So
yeah, we'll get into it. I'll give a little bit of a synopsis of Tooth and Claw now, which is landing in the 1870s by accident because they want to go to like 1979 to see some sort of concert or something like that, and obviously the Doctor can't fly the TARDIS properly. The 10th Doctor and Rose get caught up in trying to protect Queen Victoria. However, it seems something more sinister is afoot than a simple assassination plot. Can the time travelers stop the coming of the Empire of the Wolf? A werewolf episode. I mean, what do we think about Doctor Who having a werewolf episode at all? It's always been one to me that I have very, very mixed feelings about. I think it's quite effectively scary when it wants to be. I think it's a really decent horror story, but it's not very Doctor Who. Like, is it ever really very Doctor Who, this particular episode? Not really, and it's not because it's set in Victorian times. There's loads of great Doctor Who stories set in Victorian times. I do think it's got something to do with the fact that it just feels genuinely spiritually folkloric and supernatural, rather than any sort of other ghosts that you may come across or witches that you may come across in Doctor Who that have some sort of alien or scientific reasoning behind them. We had, is it the Gelf in the last Victorian episode we had with Charles Dickens?
Like I didn't
just look
kind
like,
of remind me a bit of this because the kind of creepy factor of that episode and the undead kind of coming back and that whole aspect.
Exactly.
Felt like a horror kind of thing like this does. But
we just view that as ghosts, but it has a more scientific explanation. This doesn't. This is literally just a werewolf.
Seeing her.
It's wild.
Yeah. I mean, and I see kind of why you would feel a bit of a conflict, but I just like seeing, since we are getting kind of a new team up and a new dynamic, why not kind of throw a new type of story for them in the mix of things and see how they handle it. So that's kind of where my head was at while watching this episode. While it did feel like, okay, this is different, but we're working with a different team here. So let's see what this looks like and see how they kind of jump into this situation. And
I mean, especially when it opens with some sort of yes, I mean, it does open with some sort of odd, ninja monk dance.
It's like, what in the David Carradine in Kung Fu show is happening here?
Why? You almost wonder why there are martial arts monks there at all. There doesn't need to be. These people don't need to be who they are. It could just be a creepy cult of people. Why are they all bald monks with martial arts skills? It just feels a bit odd.
It feels a little extra.
It really does feel extra. You get the guy who plays Piat Pri on Game of Thrones, the creepy Carthene man with the blue tongue.
Yeah.
Very bald, very distinct looking.
Yeah. And they try to do this artful thing as well. Yeah, and they're trying to do this artful kind of thing with it in the beginning where, the color is very muted and then these monks are coming in with these kind of, heightened brightness saturation on their
Yeah,
red kind of geese or whatever that they're wearing.
yeah.
Um and doing, slow-mo over the head flips and throwing their bow staffs in the air and all this kind of stuff.
But why
So
are they
they
doing
do
it at
kind of
all? They're not doing it at all for any reason other than to put on a performance.
Yeah, this is the opening. It's like this very kind of kung fu movie moment. And yeah, I was kind of like, what is happening here? But okay, I'm on the ride. I'm taking it in. Let's see where this goes. And yeah, it doesn't really feel super relevant to what these villains need to be to still be villains. Um, but I guess again, we're working with a new team, so let's see what we can throw at them. Is kind of where I was just kind of trying
Yeah,
to take it in, with that kind of mentality.
yeah. I mean, I get it. I appreciate you taking it in like that very much. Do you feel it does work as a horror episode? Before we get into the Queen Victoria of it all and the actual Doctor
Yeah.
involvement of it all, though, because it is obviously focused as a horror-based episode. The
Yeah.
New Earth had horror elements in the zombie-ish side of the
Yeah.
chasing and all this kind of stuff, but this is at times admittedly very, very scary, and I do think
Yeah.
I have some sort of childhood attachment to the fact that this creepy werewolf man in a cage in a cellar, with all these trapped people there who are chained up ready for him to feed on as soon as the moon comes out, and he's got these dead black eyes. Donald Pleasance would
Yeah.
be calling it the
Mhm.
devil's eyes, wouldn't he?
Those eyes,
Black
yeah.
eyes, the devil's eyes, and all
Blackest
this business
eyes,
from
yeah.
Halloween. Because he
Yeah.
really does. It's awful to
Mhm.
look at, and these kind
Yeah.
of low-key fang things coming out of his
Mhm.
mouth. It's almost vampiric at times.
Yeah.
But I really do think it works when it apologies for that. When it wants to be scary, it really does work.
Yeah. Particularly because we get this kind of
Would you agree?
intense. Yeah, because I mean, particularly in the end when we get this really intense chase scene where they're trying to protect the queen and they're kind of having to go upstairs and keep an eye out, and her kind of guard is like, trying to hold things off, and they have to like barricade themselves, and it's, creeping around doors and um,
Yeah,
you know, following them at every turn, tearing people apart. So all of that I think works really well, for sure, and feels almost kind of cinematic in a lot of ways. And they do try to do a little bit of workarounds with the kind of not so great effects on the wolf and kind of being in wolf POV and that kind of thing to sell that
I
a
don't
little
care for
bit
the
and
wolf
not
wolf.
having to show it. Well, I mean, considering how the wolf looks, I feel like they had to do some things to
It's
not
better
have
than
to
it's
show the
better than
wolf.
how the wolf looks. Yeah,
Yeah, so I will accept the wolf POV as a kind of workaround for the not so great special effects. But yeah, I think a lot of the horror elements, particularly in that kind of final sequence where the wolf chase is kind of on, um, really sold it in a cinematic way to feel like it was really giving a lot of good horror vibes. So I was
yeah.
into it.
Okay, fair enough. I think it's another quite funny start to the episode as well, though, because obviously when they land on this moor that they're on,
Yeah,
mistakenly in the 1870s, and are immediately accosted by Queen Victoria's guards. Um,
yeah.
the Doctor realizes they're in Scotland, and David Tennant has the opportunity to just revert to his normal
Go back
speaking voice.
into his accent. Yeah, and Rose is, like, half naked, but in their minds, half naked. She's wearing, like, a
Yes.
t-shirt and, like, some short overalls, and, yeah, everyone just kind of
Please
makes
explain the
commentary about
nakedness of this
the
girl.
naked girl. Yes, so, because she thinks she's going to the 1970s, and so, yeah, that's kind of a running thing as well, that she's
Yeah.
very underdressed.
Yeah, I like that Tennant is able to show off his Scottishness a little
Yeah,
bit though,
mhm,
in
yeah.
this particular episode. Obviously, that's dropped after a little while, And Queen Victoria notices that it's dropped after a little while and then becomes even more distrustful of the Doctor.
Of them. Yes. Yeah.
I think while Queen Victoria in this episode is understanding of the fact that they're all trying to help her, she has no trust that the Doctor and Rose are like people she wants to be around or people she wants to interact with.
She's very suspicious of them.
Very, very suspicious of them. Now, as we spoke about when we talked about the Charles Dickens episode in series 1, obviously, which isn't a great episode in series 1. It's one of the lesser sort of episodes of series 1, really, but with a great celebrity historical performance, I think, by Simon Cowell as Dickens. It's funny that this is almost the same kind of thing to me.
Yeah.
Because I think this is ultimately, when I look at the series 2 list, look, there's still some duds to come, admittedly, because there's some quite funny ones. And I think when we do get there, you'll know what we're talking about, and we'll be able to have fun with it. Yeah. Because one of them's just bizarre, and one of them's just kind of, this is really cheap and kind of bad. Why is this here? Like, what is this? One of them's bad in a, is it even fun bad way, or is it just wildly different kind of way? And very childish kind of way. I think one of them's just a bit dull, to be honest, and cheap to make. But the Tooth and Claw wouldn't come in the top tiers of series 2 episodes, really. But it does have another great celebrity historical performance, I think, from Pauline Collins, Shirley Valentine as Queen Victoria.
Shirley Valentine. Yes, I was looking at her. I'm like, I know this face. I know this face, looking to camera and saying something snarky. Why do I know her?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's Shirley Valentine, a movie I love that I introduced to you on Morgan Hasn't Seen.
You did.
When we were doing a Brave New Women series, so check that out. But yeah, it was kind of nice to see her. And yeah, she does give a really great performance. Very kind of suspicious and stern. And, despite kind of the chaos going on, she doesn't seem like super scared,
No, she's a very faithful person,
confident.
though, isn't she?
Yeah.
I think Queen Victoria herself was obviously a very devoted person, and she, they're in this particular estate home that Prince Albert, obviously at this point her late husband, really had a lot of fondness for, spent a lot of time there. Conveniently, this location is referred to as the Torchwood Estate. Do we recall that name from the Christmas Invasion, perhaps, Jeannine? Yes, do keep that in mind, as I said before, because ultimately, after all the shenanigans of this episode, Queen Victoria does reinstate this particular building as an institute, referred to as the Torchwood Institute, which would obviously become those individuals who did away with the Sycorax in the Christmas Invasion. So, there's a nice starting point of that particular storyline, I think, is here. The fact that it comes from, is created by Queen Victoria to guard Britain against otherworldly threats, essentially, because she's obviously had contact with the Doctor and a werewolf now.
Yeah, so some strange things that need handling.
Realizes that Earth isn't everything, I think, at this point. And, can't quite handle that, so does obviously make this institute herself. In honor of Prince Albert, who obviously she loved so incredibly dearly in real life. And he had spent a lot of time with the father of the current owner of the Torchwood estate, making all these scientific, discoveries and being
Yeah,
learned
the
men and things like this.
giant telescope we see, and
Giant telescope that maybe isn't quite actually a telescope and is used for
yeah,
something else,
yeah,
i.e. destroying a werewolf. I wonder
yeah,
how they all knew a werewolf was coming. Well, folklore, that's how
yeah,
they all knew a
folklore, yeah,
werewolf was coming.
yeah, long time old tale that was told, and yeah.
Yeah, secretly this telescope is actually a werewolf killing device, and it just
Yeah,
needs the world's most expensive diamond that Queen Victoria
diamond
just happens to be
happens to
carrying in
have,
a
yeah,
handbag.
yeah.
It, like, inexplicably, a little satchel she's sort of carrying. Just,
Yeah, has
just
this
here,
giant
here is
cow.
the world's most expensive diamond ever that Prince Albert kept getting cut for some reason. And I wonder why
Yeah,
he did this. Because he wanted to make it perfect so he could
the more
save your life
perfect
from the werewolf that he knew was coming. Victoria, that's why.
exactly. Yes, yeah.
But it's, what do you make of the I should say the man of the house in this particular episode? Then the actual owner of the Torchwood estate, his house has been infiltrated by these warrior monk
Yeah.
wolf people.
Yeah,
But
so he's kind of under
they're keeping them
duress.
hostage essentially, aren't
Exactly, him and his wife, and he can't, say anything. So he's trying to, by the best of his ability, kind of give cues and clues, without these kinda, ninja monks
they?
being
Yeah,
onto him. So yeah, I think that's an interesting element of him trying to kind of warn them as best he can, but not being able to. And then ultimately makes a sacrifice to kind of make up, I
he
guess,
does.
for not being able to kind of protect them from this whole situation. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a very impactful sacrifice when it does come.
Hmm.
To be honest with you, I
Yeah.
think he gives a particularly good performance as well. I do
Hmm.
forget his name at the moment. I'll try and find it quickly. Um, is it Derek Riddle as Sir Robert? I think he does give a great little
Yeah.
performance, to be honest. A
Hmm.
very kind of emotionally strained one, because his wife's obviously trapped downstairs in the cellar with all the
Yeah.
kind of house, workers,
Exactly.
housekeepers, and all this kind of stuff, next to
Mhm.
this creepy werewolf man.
Werewolf man, yeah, who's in this cage, who can we see how clearly easily he can break out of it once he does turn.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then Rose gets kind of trapped with all of them, and of course, her being the go-getter kind of as she
Yes.
is, she's like, "No, we're
I'll
not just
go
gonna
and
sit
walk up
here
to
in
the
chains."
werewolf.
Yeah, she's like, We're not just gonna sit here in chains and wait for this thing to kill us. Let us, try to break out of these chains." So Rose kinda, uh leading the charge in kind of doing what she does and taking initiative. So love to see that from her always. I would have loved to see her kind of actually get changed into some nice kind of Victorian outfit, but of course, right before she's about to do that, she gets captured.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I
yeah.
do like how you bring that up, to be honest, because there is absolutely never any consistency within Doctor Who as to whether they want to wear period appropriate clothing for whatever
Yeah.
setting they may be in, or they just
Yeah.
wear regular clothing
Whatever.
and
Yeah.
don't try. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. You don't necessarily have to think anything of it.
Yeah.
It's strange that just sometimes they do and sometimes they don't.
Yeah, and it would be, I think, a fun extra element if they really attempted to kind of dress full on for whatever they were going to. So, like, had they shown up, in full kind of 70s kind of disco outfits or
Yeah,
whatever, that would have been a fun layer of comedy, seeing them there in
yes,
that, and the strange looks they'd be getting. But there is a bit of kind of recurring comedy as well happening here, and sometimes at the most inopportune times of Rose trying to get Queen Victoria to say a very particular thing. Um,
yes. Like, and makes a bet with the Doctor. The Doctor's more than willing to just go along with this bet of trying
Yeah.
to get Queen Victoria to say, "We are not amused." But Rose goes about it in the most blatantly obvious way. It's like, "Mom,
Yeah.
would you say like this maybe it's not particularly amusing,
Really
is it? What
amusing,
would you
is
say
it?
about that, Mom?" She basically, I mean, for all intents and purposes, Queen Victoria might as well be telling Rose to shut up at this point, but she can't do
Yeah,
that
she
because
just
she's a bit too
yeah, she
cross.
literally just pauses, looks at her, and then keeps talking about whatever she was talking about, and then Rose just giggles and kinda gives a nudge to the doctor, like, "I see, I'm trying. I'm
The
trying
doctor's
to make
just
it happen."
despairing and shaking
He's
his
just
head,
like,
going, "Why? What are you
oh my
doing?
gosh, just
Stop
and she does it
doing
at a
this."
very kind of serious time as well when they're, like, running and hiding from the werewolf.
Yeah,
She tries to do it, and there's like,
not very
"Oh,
amusing,
time,
this is it,
Rose."
Mom.
Yeah,
Yeah, read the room, Rose. Come on,
yeah,
there's danger
yeah,
afoot here. You can't be
yes,
doing this.
exactly. Yes.
Um,
But yeah,
but
I liked how different this episode like, it felt familiar in terms of, like, historical figure, horror element, so it
yeah,
was taking my brain back to the Dickens episode, but them kind of doing a wholly kind of strange thing and throwing some interesting elements in there, and I was able to kinda just take it in as like, "Okay, this is a new phase, new doctor."
yeah.
Um,
It's just
maybe they're just trying to
stylistically a
kind of
bit unusual
yeah,
as well.
they're trying to do something different, from what, we saw before. So, yeah,
I,
I was into
I
it.
think I think it's commendable that they did try something different. It's just
Mhm.
whether it does work for you or not, I think is a
Yeah.
question that's up for debate. I don't mind them trying something different. They try
Mhm.
plenty different in
Okay.
series two, to be
I'm
honest with you. They
excited.
try various things that are a little bit different, and some work and some don't, I
Okay.
think. But that is the nature, I think, of what Doctor Who could do with its series two, because its series one was
Yeah.
so successful and
Yeah.
so, you know, kind of precise in what it wanted to do. It knew exactly the tones it wanted to hit to make sure Doctor Who would continue strongly.
Yeah.
And obviously, it did that right from minute one. So,
Yeah.
series two, they just had a little bit more creative freedom to kind of go bit here, there, and everywhere stylistically. And then I think series three, and as I say, particularly series four, just solidifies a style for this particular era so
Yeah.
well. And it brings the best of these first two series and their individual styles kind of together
Yeah.
and balances it all really well, I think. There's so much less silly. I say silliness, but sometimes it's good to have silliness in Doctor Who. Particularly
Yeah.
this era, you need an element of silliness. Um, you need an element of campiness, and I think Tooth and Claw does also bring
Yeah.
that to a degree while being effectively scary. It does
Yeah.
feel like a bit like a campy werewolf TV
Mhm.
episode.
Yeah.
Yes, that's probably got something to do with the fact that the CG on the werewolf isn't the best, but we have to
Yeah.
accept this in this era of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I mean, for God's sake, some would have you believe that we have to accept that in all eras of Doctor Who,
Yeah.
even going, to now, obviously not classic Doctor Who, there was no CG then. We were
Yeah.
dealing with people in suits wearing bubble wrap and things like that, and
Yeah.
everybody was fine. And in many ways, that's better, isn't it? Really,
Yeah.
if you ask me,
Yeah.
in many ways, I'd rather have that than
Yeah.
some of the nonsense CG we do get in this particular era
Yeah.
of
Homemade kind
Doctor
of
Who.
vibe. You kind of
Yeah,
understand that, like, it is what it is, as opposed to
yeah,
them trying to do something that just looks kind of crazy. Yeah.
yeah. But no, it was good to rewatch. I think this particular
Okay.
episode. I've always, like I said, I've always had a fondness for New Earth as an episode because I think it's a
Mhm.
really well put together, very interesting. It's got its moral philosophy. It's got its real campy fun humor. I mean, those scenes
Yeah.
where Cassandra is first in the Doctor and Tennant's just kind of fidgeting around
Yeah.
and kind of dancing and kind of realizing he's a man
Oh,
for
I'm
the
in a
first time and things
man's
like
body.
that.
Oh, this is
It's
strange.
really
Oh,
quite
yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
The humor is not the same in Tooth and Claw, but the
Yeah.
horror elements, as we say, do work
Mhm.
quite well.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
And it comes to a nice, emotional, impactful conclusion. Yeah, Robert's sacrifice, to save the Queen, the diamond coming in handy, it all being a bit of a prophecy sort of thing from Prince
Yeah, so we're
Albert and
playing
Robert's
with
father.
time. Yeah, and it feels like we're playing with time and kind of knowing, because I think even when a certain point they get stuck in kind of this drawing room, and the
Yeah,
werewolf doesn't break in, it's
yeah,
because there's like mistletoe,
yeah,
forged into the doors and everything, and that repels the werewolf. So kind of a planned, thought out,
yeah,
kind of like, I knew my wife was going to be in this situation, so I'm going to prepare. I knew people were going to be in this situation, so I'm going to protect my family in the future from this kind of thing. And then even with the diamond as well, and that kind of future,
yeah,
insight into planning for that. So it feels like this kind of futuristic time travel, kind of like setting something up because what's going to happen, premonition type thing, which is like
yeah.
very much all about Doctor Who is. So
Absolutely.
I
I
like
think that
that. Yeah.
that sort of storyline comes time and again in
Yes, timey-wimey
Doctor Who.
stuff always is kinda cool to see, so
Timey-wimey stuff,
yeah.
I think, particularly when we eventually get into Stephen Moffat's time as showrunner from, the Matt Smith era
Okay.
onwards. And Peter Capaldi, I should say, Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi. That sort of time loop almost, or time
Yeah,
paradox thing
'cause I think when I was
really does constantly seem to come up.
yeah, 'cause I think when
Um,
I first started watching the show, I was looking ahead at some things, and I did see a thing with Matt Smith's doctor that does kind of have an interesting kind of loopity time thing,
okay.
uh, with his
Well, I wonder
companion.
what that was.
So
With his
so I'm like,
companion.
I don't know that I remember fully the details of it, but I remember looking ahead and there
Mm,
was like a little tiny thing
okay.
that that I was
I
like,
would
"Oh,
say
that's kinda cool."
I
So,
obviously kind of know what you're talking about.
yeah.
Um, but I hope you come to forget that more before we get there
Yeah,
eventually,
like, I
almost,
don't
because I
even
think
know
it's
if I
more impactful if you don't.
remember. I don't remember the full context, but I think I have, like, a vague
Okay.
idea of, like, I remember looking it up and looking ahead because I thought, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna get there soon," and I just didn't get
I mean,
there.
do you wanna
Um
do you wanna make a bold statement to close out this episode and say what you think that might be? Obviously, that's some time to come now, but now that you've
E
brought it up in this paradoxical conversation.
Yeah, something about Karen Gillan's companion where she had, like, a childhood, like, invisible man kind of friend or something like that, and then as a child, and then she becomes his companion and realizes that it was the doctor, something like
Okay,
that is kind of
okay,
what I'm remembering, something to that
okay. Fair,
effect.
fair. I don't think that's a necessarily a bad memory to have. I'll just
Okay,
say that. I don't think that's
okay.
necessarily a bad memory to have. We will get there eventually, of course, though. But next time out's going to be quite interesting on diving into Doctor Who. Jeannine, we have a nostalgic episode for the classic Who
Mm,
fans
okay.
in episode 3, which is called School Reunion, which sees you would say it's more of a typical sort of Doctor Who episode. All
Okay.
aliens are invading a school and things like that. The Doctor
Yeah.
must stop them. But it brings back a companion from the 80s.
Okay,
Um,
because like, how they presented her, I was like, "Oh, this must be an old companion." Like, I immediately
yeah,
kinda got the sense of, like, yeah.
arguably the most famous classic Doctor Who companion, or the most
Okay.
beloved. I think the longest running classic Doctor Who companion as well.
Okay.
And we will talk plenty about Sarah Jane Smith in the next episode. It also brings back a silly little robot dog from the 80s called Canine as well.
Oh, nice.
Who was a staple of that particular era. Tom Baker's Doctor with the big scarf. Things like that. It's that era of Doctor Who that we're hearkening back to with these two particular characters. Most notably, anyway, at least in School Reunion. And then I think we have The Girl in the Fireplace, which is maybe the highlight of season 2, to be fair. Maybe the highlight of series 2 is The Girl in the Fireplace. I think The Girl in the Fireplace is a very, very beloved episode. And you want to talk a little bit about timey-wimey stuff, you're getting a little bit of it in The Girl in the Fireplace.
Okay.
It's a creepy episode as well. And it's a very, very good episode of Doctor Who, I personally think. And many others, I think, do view that episode very, very fondly.
Okay.
But yes, that is what we've got coming next on Diving into Doctor Who. It's nice to be back properly with a fully fledged series of Doctor Who and a great start. A solid start, I should say. It didn't blow the world apart, did it?
But a good start. Kind of warming up for me, like, to be excited about what's to come with this pairing. As this is kind of where I stopped watching, so this is all new territory, so I'm just really excited.
Very good, very good. Well, until that next time, of course, this isn't the only show we have on the It's a Wonderful podcast feed. It is in our alternating of TV-based things on a Monday. So if you like TV shows, we do talk about a variety of them on Mondays. Last week, we had a bit of a poignant farewell to series 4, season 4, I should say. Season. I'm going to get confused. Doctor Who's referred to in series. Dawson's Creek is obviously referred to in seasons. But a poignant farewell to season 4 of Dawson's Creek that we had last week, obviously, and because of the recent passing of James Van Der Beek, we spent a good deal of time remembering him on that. But we'll be back with part 2 of babbling about Bridgerton for season 4 as well. Next week, I believe, which is very exciting. That's out now, isn't it, Bridgerton? So yes, I'm sure we've watched it by the time this even comes out, this particular episode. But it will be next week's TV show. Before we do, get into a little bit of a different show as well for a couple of months before returning back to Dawson's Creek for season 5. All is very exciting. Morgan Hasn't Seen is there every Wednesday, of course, as well, though, and the main show every Friday, celebrating old movies every single week, as we love to do the most on It's a Wonderful podcast. If you have been watching today's episode on the It's a Wonderful podcast YouTube channel, do subscribe and ding your notification bell here. Of course, things have been scrolling down at the bottom of the screen all episode long, but if you are just listening today on whatever podcast platform that may be, do subscribe wherever you are listening. Leave your comments on Spotify, like, share, rate and review and all that good stuff everywhere you possibly can as well. And if you would like to support us on Patreon or donate in any such way, find links to do that in the description of today's episode, or obviously on and across all the social medias as well, on the app formerly known as Twitter and on Blue Sky at It's a Wonderful One. Find me on the app formerly known as Twitter at The Purple Dawn with a 3 instead of the E in there because, Jeannine,
3 is a magic number.
On Instagram, TikTok and Blue Sky at The Purple Dawn. All your Tennant loving ? As well.
You can find me at Jeannine Devine _ on Twitter, Jeannine Devine on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. And if you want to get any merch for any of our shows, just check the description for the link or search G9 Design on tpublic.com.
And, well, there's so many impressions you could possibly do today to close out.
No impression.
There's an impression of the very calming voice of the face of Bo. You could give us an impression of Adjorando, as Sister Jacked, I think she's called, as the Sister of Plenitude. You could give us a Pauline Collins as Queen Victoria. You could give us a David Tennant reverting back to his Scottish accent.
No, none of it.
Anything you wish.
3, 2, 1.
We are not amused. But I feel like that was Agatha Danbury saying Queen Victoria's thing there.
Well, that was meant to be my Cassandra, but I guess I didn't do a very good job.
Oh, it was Cassandra. I don't know what's going on.
Terrible.